welcome everyone to Books in Focus this is the month of February that we're in, but we're going to be talking about books that are coming out in March already. I'm Christine, and Miranda, and Ashton, and Jenny, and we'll be sharing some of the slightly off the beat selections with you.
Did you say offbeat people or sharing off?
It's offbeat people that are going to be sharing with you. I know my crowd. No, some a little off, not really offbeat, but a little bit off the beaten path. Because these are the beaten path selections. These are our books that are guaranteed to be bestsellers, and you'll probably be very familiar with the names of the authors. One of them is James Patterson. I know, it's a shock. Exactly right. Wasn't he just on a month ago?
And a month ago.
This one he's written with a lady named Nancy Allen, and this book is being billed as James Patterson's best legal thriller yet. So if you're a Patterson fan, you might want to get on hold for that.
How really?
Danielle Steele, she has Never Too Late coming out on the 5th of March. This is a book about the importance of human connection and embracing change. Lisa Gardner, Still See You Everywhere. This is number 3 in her Frankie Elkins series. Lisa Scottolini, The Truth About the Devlins, a wealthy family, a wayward son, and a murder that could destroy them all. Fern Michaels, The Wild Side, a school guidance counselor poses as a high-class escort to penetrate meetings of rich and powerful men. Children are disappearing, so she steps out to take part in solving that problem. Laura Childs has Murder in the Tea Leaves. This is number 27 of her the Tea Shop series. And Finding Margaret Fuller by Alison Pataki. This is a star-studded cast and epic historical events with strong female leads. And then we have The Great Divide by Cristina Enriquez. And this is a construction of the Panama Canal story. Probably some rich history there, and also the intersection of individuals' lives with the building of that canal.
And then next we have our surefire best-selling nonfiction. The first is Joyce Carol Oates' Letters to a Biographer by Joyce Carol Oates and Greg Johnson. This is a rich compilation of Joyce Carol Oates' letters spanning about 4 decades. It's being described as having a great sense of humor and displaying the author's warmth and her mastery of the lost art of letter writing, so it should be pretty interesting. Next we have On the Move by Abram Lutzgartner. Humanity is on the precipice of a great migration due to climate change. This well-researched book explores the impact climate change will have on human movement as extreme weather renders familiar places unrecognizable. Next we have The Secrets of the Octopus by Cy Montgomery. This accessibly written book discusses the remarkable new discoveries that have been made regarding one of nature's most complex and intelligent creatures. It is beautifully illustrated and is the perfect companion to the new and highly anticipated National Geographic television special. Next we have The Rise and Fall of the Second American Republic. This is a groundbreaking, expansive new account of the Reconstruction period that fundamentally altered our views on American history. It is accessibly written and well researched and it thoroughly challenges the understandings of the events of this period and their impact on us today. So really looking forward to that one. The Making of a Leader by Josiah Bunting III. This is a biography that gives an intimate portrait of one of the most influential leaders of modern history, that is George Marshall. It is described as an illuminating book that cuts through the myths surrounding Marshall's early childhood years to provide a clear understanding of the impact of his formative years on his accomplishments later in life. My personal favorite on this list, How to Be Old by Lynn Slater. This is the 10-year story of Slater's 19 of her 60s and the sometimes glamorous, sometimes turbulent decade of her successful blog, Accidental Icon. It is described as an empowering and humorous book charting a path between a memoir and a guide for those looking to age authentically. The Cave by Dr. Valior. This is a searing memoir and medical commentary that tells the story of a young doctor and activist who ran an underground hospital in Damascus, humanizing the enduring crisis in Syria. Dr. Valior is the only woman to have ever run a wartime hospital. It's described as a thought-provoking read about a remarkable woman and her commitment to providing humanitarian aid. And then the New York Game by Kevin Baker is described as a hugely entertaining history of baseball and the city of New York, with larger-than-life figures and fascinating stories of the game's beginnings to the end of World War II. It's riveting, rollicking, and a brilliant ode to America's pastime.
And we're starting with The New Couple in 5E by Lisa Unger. You couldn't tell the covers and it looks very similar. So it is a new psych thriller to be released on March 5th. This new binge-worthy thriller follows couple Rosie and Chad Lowen, who are struggling to make ends meet while living in New York City. However, their lives change when the couple unexpectedly inherits a luxury apartment at the historic Windermere in glamorous Murray Hill. As Lowens start to settle into their charming new home, they start to suspect that there is more to Windermere than meets the eye. Why is the doorman ever present? Why are there cameras everywhere? And why have so many gruesome crimes occurred there throughout the years? Our first read-alike is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. It is also a mystery thriller. It is recently heartbroken and just plain broke. Jules Larson dreams come true when she is hired on as an apartment sitter at the Bartholomew, one of Manhattan's most high-profile and mysterious buildings. The only rules to follow: no visitors, no nights spent away from the apartment, and no disturbing the other residents. When one of the residents confides in Jules about the dark history of the building, Jules brushes it off until her new friend goes missing. In trying to find her friend, Jules realizes she is in for more than she bargained for as more bodies and secrets arise. Next, we have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. She has become very popular. Her first novel was The Guest List. It is also a mystery thriller. Needing a fresh start after losing her job, Jess decides to crash with her half-brother Ben at his Paris apartment, because surely everything will look better in Paris. However, when she arrives at his very nice apartment, Ben is nowhere to be found. The longer Ben is missing, the more Jess starts to worry, and soon every neighbor becomes a suspect in this fast-paced and atmospheric read. Common themes of these two books and this one are the theme of being too good to be true. And I thought it was funny as I read the descriptions of all three of these books, every book description referred to the neighbors as eccentric.
I am really excited for this book. It's called Glorious Exploits by Frida Lennon. This is her debut. It is an utterly original creation of what binds humanity across battle lines and history. Set amid the Peloponnesian War, two Sicilian brothers share their love of theater and storytelling with the surviving Athenian prisoners, and before long, the group hatches a plan to put on a production of Medea. This is described as indescribable, with a whimsical, funny, and irreverent story that is an ode to the power of art in a time of war. And as an indescribable book, it was a fun time for me finding read-alikes for it. with a similar theme of the things that cause people to come together in times of war. I pulled All the Lights We Cannot See. Although this is a more serious title, it is at its core about two people coming together in a time of war. It is an intensifying story of a German orphan and a blind French girl who discovers that they have a connection through a radio program from their youth. It is an emotional story that interweaves the lives of people during the devastation of World War II, while illuminating the ways that people tried to be good to one another.
Good, the bad, and the antis. This comes to us from Jesse Sutanto. This is a cozy mystery, and it is a fast-paced story about this entire cast of characters who come together in Jakarta to celebrate the Chinese New Year. And part of the Chinese New Year tradition includes exchanging gifts, and one of the aunties gets a gift that is not meant for her, which would normally not be a big deal in most families. But in this family, it leads to business complications and an imprisonment, and this keeps the reader frolicking along until the end of this rather zany story. These cozy mysteries are just fun reads. They represent a different culture, and you know we always enjoy reading about different cultures. And read-alikes for those would be Dial A for Aunties and Four Aunties and a Wedding. Those are the same author.
That would be ugly.
Yeah. And also there's another group. This author writes, this is a different author, but she also writes about an Asian immigrant family making their way in America, and she has titles like Fatal Fried Rice, Killer Kung Pao, Misfortune Cookie, Hot and Sour Suspects, things like that. So, fun, light, cozy mysteries.
I Am Rome is set in Rome 77 BCE. The corrupt Senator Dolabella is about to go on trial for various crimes, and after the senator has made it clear that he is not afraid to use violence to bolster his legal defense, no man would dare to accept the role of prosecutor until an unknown 23-year-old steps forward in defiance of the ruling elite by the name of Gaius Julius Caesar. This is an epic tale of politics, betrayal, and impossible odds told in breathtaking historical detail. The first read-alike I have is The Thorn of Caesar by Stephen Strahler. This is set in Rome 44 BCE. At the Ides of March are approaching. Julius Caesar has officially been appointed dictator, and just for nerd's sake, the Latin pronunciation of that would have been dictator. Anyway, and he is preparing to leave Rome for the Parthian Empire. And as Caesar is making plans, he is forgiving his enemies and rewarding his friends, and a conspiracy is brewing. This is both a detailed historical novel and a fast-paced mystery that pulls you into the last days of Julius Caesar's life. And then we can't talk about Rome without talking about Hannibal. The next read-alike I have is Hannibal, the Enemy of Rome by Ben Kane. This is set during the Second Punic War. Carthage has been humiliated by the Roman legions, and a brilliant young Carthaginian general, Hannibal, has dedicated himself to making them pay. Two boys find themselves caught up in the maelstrom of this war, and it is a captivating story, immersive, and it feels as though you've stepped back into time. So beware the Ides of March.
Alright. I got Big Time by Ben H. Winters. The sci-fi crime thriller follows three women, all who play a role in a kidnapping. The kidnapper, the victim, and the woman investigating not the kidnapping itself, but what was done to the victim. When Anna wakes up in the hospital with a mysterious tube sticking out of her chest and no recollection of a large span of time, she runs. Grace, an FDA agent, being assigned to figure out what the tube is, finds herself in a race against the kidnapper to find Anna again in this edge-of-your-seat sci-fi, which blends in a major ethical question I won't give any spoilers about. My two read-alikes are Blind Spots by Thomas Mullen. In a future where everyone is blind and can only see with technology, a murderer who can make himself invisible to technology kills his victims right in front of others with no witnesses. And then we have The Shining Girls by Lauren Bukes. After Kirby survives being slaughtered by a time-traveling serial killer, she grows up to become a reporter in order to hunt down the killer.
This story, Dominoes, is written by Miss Phoebe McIntosh. Her debut novel, although she has credits as a playwright. This is a story that takes place in current times, and it's the story of Layla and her friend Sarah. And Layla hooks up with a guy, and they fall immediately in love. They have wonderful chemistry. They also, interestingly enough, have the same last name. Layla is biracial, and the man that she's fallen in love with, whose name is Andy, is white. Well, Sarah has become suspicious of this young man, and she encourages Layla to look into her family history. So Layla starts to do this, and she does find that her ancestors were owned by Andy's ancestors at the time they built their wealth in Jamaica. So this, of course, causes her to do a lot of reflecting and soul searching, and she ends up not only conflicted about her upcoming marriage to Andy, but very conflicted about her old friendship with Sarah and how she wants to proceed with that. This is a character-driven story with strong females, and even though it's emotionally intense and moving at times, the writing is it's a tender book. She writes very carefully and tenderly, and she writes with a lot of skill. She has a lot of prose. Her background as a playwright comes through in her novel. A read-alike I chose for that. One of them was The Bride Test by Helen Huang, but I couldn't find it on the shelf. But if you want more information, let me know. And Louise Erdrich's The Plague of Doves. That's also about current lives, choices, desires in the present day, multiracial characters, and how they are often influenced, whether they want it or not, by the past of their family. Next, we're going to talk about The Mystery Writer. This is a story that is written by Sulari Gentile and takes place in Australia and Lawrence, Kansas. My husband used to live there. Factoid about Lawrence, Kansas. So Theo meets and befriends one of her favorite authors. His name is Dan Murdoch. And this author agrees to look at her writing, to read what she's written, to make some notes to sort of help her get started. So she's very excited about that. And they have an arrangement for a meeting, and Dan doesn't show up at the arranged meeting place. So Theo goes to his apartment to find out what is wrong, and she finds him dead, and she does everything she has to do to alert the authorities. a little bit of time passes, but she does go ahead with a book deal that was offered her by Dan's agent. So she signs a book deal, and then other people in her circle become dead or murdered. So she, of course, then becomes a suspect. This book is described by a reviewer as a book that swerves and throws in late-stage reveals, but these things only serve to enhance the novel's biting wit. So a bit of a suspense, but in a witty way, and a read-alike would be Ruth Ware's The It Girl. And this is one where Hannah learns in the story that a friend who was convicted of murder found innocent of that crime, and the friend group gathers to try to resolve what's happened, and she realizes that they all probably have something to hide. So this is one of those friend group stories. We've had a lot of those lately.
So Maya's Laws of Love. Maya has the worst luck. So she finally decided to allow her parents to arrange her marriage to an unknown man in Pakistan. Of course, she gets seated on the plane next to a cynical lawyer who is not helping. And then when a storm forces the plane to land in Switzerland, more bad luck. Until she and this lawyer, Safars, become unexpected travel companions due to this strange detour. But something more happens during this heartwarming romance about chance and finding love in unlikely places. So, unlucky, a little bit of an odd couple, which is why both of these books by Emily Henry kind of jumped out at me as good read-alikes. The first one, alas, was checked out this morning. It's People We Meet on Vacation, and I'm just going to read you the byline for it, which is, Poppy and Alex, they have nothing in common. She's a wild child, he wears khakis. It's also a heartwarming story about friends who are opposites and discover what they mean to each other. And then the other is Book Lovers. Nora loves books, People not so much. Charlie loves books, and also not so much on people. The two run into each other on vacation, and it seems like it would be the ideal meet cute for a romance if it weren't for the fact that they have met many times before and it has never been cute. What they discover on this trip is that the carefully crafted stories they've told themselves about themselves and each other are not quite correct. They're both just very fun, sweet, heartwarming romances that are perfect for the day before Valentine's Day.
So the Pelican Girls, this is a historical fiction, literary fiction, takes place in the 1720s, and Paris and New Orleans. This is a multi-character narrative of a never-before-told story of the Baleen Brides, nearly 100 women of childbearing age who were plucked from La Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris. And if that sounds familiar, that is the hospital Princess Diana was taken to after she was hurt in Paris, which I thought was pretty fascinating. This is from 1720. But anyway, Paris is an old place. The women face pirates, slave drivers, sickness, war, heartbreak, childbirth, and ultimately friendship. And their friendships are what will sustain them through the years. So they're put on a boat, they're sent to New Orleans, to Louisiana, to help all the men there populate that area. There's way more men than women, so this is how they get women. They take them from this asylum and just pluck them onto a boat. This is described by Gwen Fan Mai, as a stunning and remarkable book. Pelican Girls is more than a novel. It's an act of advocacy for human rights and historical acknowledgement. And I've selected as a read-alike her book, Dust Child. I just finished that. It is an amazing story about biracial children in Vietnam who were left with their mothers after the war. And she also wrote a very good book called Mountains Sing. It's about before and after the Vietnam War, and it focuses on a Vietnamese family. And then I also grabbed, if you like the bride part, I grabbed Ship of Brides by Jojo Moyes. She's always a safe pick. And then this one is a little different than the Pelican Girls, but this is 650 war brides. So these women who were already married to American soldiers after World War II, they all hop onto a ship with the HMS Victoria, which is also carrying arms, aircraft, and 1,000 naval officers. It's a life-changing journey for many of them.
I got How to Solve Your Own Murder. At a carnival in the mid-60s, Frances is warned by a fortune teller that she would one day be murdered. Frances goes on to spend nearly 70 years obsessing over who would murder her, compiling dirt on everyone that crosses her path. When her great niece Annie comes to visit, she discovers Frances has been killed in her countryside estate. Annie delves deep into the mounds of research her murdered great aunt built on every person she knew in order to find her murderer. The two read-alikes are going to be The Most Agreeable Murder, set in a Victorian-era romance setting. Beatrice, a feisty would-be detective, is forced to marry to keep her family wealthy until she finds herself trapped at a dinner party with her dead suitor. And Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. When Vera finds a murdered man in her shop, she takes matters into her own hands, but can she turn in the murderer that's growing? How did I write that? I'm sorry. Can she turn in this guy that she's learning to like?
It was amusing.
Oh, yeah, I figured something.
Yeah.
Percival Everett is going to be giving us his historical fiction, James. This book is based on Huckleberry Finn, but this is the story from Jim's perspective. So Mr. Everett has done a very good job of maintaining the elements of Huck Finn, but we're going to learn how it looked through Jim's eyes. They're going to have the floods. They're going to be running. They're each running. Jim is running from being captured and sold. Huck is just running because he convinced his father he was dead because he didn't want to deal with him anymore. All the story elements are the same, but we're going to get a different perspective. Jim is more resourceful and contemplative in this version. His odyssey concludes with remarkable revelations, violent showdowns, and insightful meditations on literature and philosophy. So Mr. Everett also wrote Erasure, which is discussion of the from the literary world about how they publish African American literature, how they publish, how they don't publish and distribute. A pretty harsh criticism. It was written in 2001, but it was just made into an Oscar-nominated movie called American Fiction. So that movie is Erasure. It's the story told on the big screen. And there was a lot of acclaim for the movie. I haven't seen a movie since Dark Knight. I mean, I'm way behind. So I don't see a lot of movies. But this one does have a lot of appeal factors for me. And also, you can't talk about an ingenious remake of of an American classic without talking about Demon Copperhead. If you've not read that, it's the retelling of David Copperfield. Barbara Kingsolver is also brilliant in the way she takes the David Copperfield elements from that 1850s book and makes every one of the main elements so relevant to our world today. It's excellently written and inspired me to want to read David Copperfield again, but I didn't get through it, I have to admit, because life gets in the way. But it was very inspiring to take a look at how she did that. She did a beautiful job. And I also grabbed Wicked. We cannot keep Wicked in our collection. It is always listed as missing or not returned. But I mention that because McGuire's retelling of The Wizard of Oz is always acknowledged for its brilliance and its sensitivity. And also, it's coming out as a movie soon. Yeah, the trailers appeared on the Super Bowl. So, Take Two, Bertie Maxwell. This is a rom-com. Shifting gears a little bit here. This book is written by Alison Wynne Scotch. We have one other of her books in our collection. She's written many books. Many of them are available in ebook. But the one that we have is called The Rewind. And one of the reviews of that says it is The Hangover meets When Harry Met Sally. This one is about a young woman. Her name is Bertie. She's been quite the superstar, and her star is fading. So she had a bad tantrum on set, gave her a bad reputation. Nobody wants to work with her anymore. So she decides she's going to go on a quest to figure out who wrote an unsigned love letter to her that she discovers in her childhood home. And along for the ride is her best friend's brother, Elliot. I wonder who wrote the letter. This story is told alternating voices between Bertie and Elliot, so they're traveling together. I don't know how the story ends, but I have it planted in my mind that Elliot may be playing a primary role. For read-alikes, I brought Savor the Moment by Nora Roberts, and a young woman who longs for a man that she does not believe she could ever have. He's so far above her, and he also happens to be her best friend's brother. And Not That Kind of Ever After, about finding your way back to those that you love. She has, this is the fourth one in this series. These are written by Ellie Cosimano. These are mysteries. This particular one takes place mostly in Atlantic City. She, meaning Finley, she and Vero decide they're going on a girls' getaway weekend to Atlantic City. Vero is her nanny and her friend. So they're going to take the weekend off, and things are not going to be all fun and games for them. First of all, they have too many tag-alongs, and they've got family and kids, and everybody wants to go with them. And they find out that the bad guys that they end up trailing will not be playing by the rules. So the question is, will Finley successfully juggle her jealous ex-husband, her 2 kids, her mother, a decomposing loan shark, and find Vero's missing boyfriend? All to get out of Atlantic City. Or will she fold under pressure? So, she's a pretty tough lady, we'll see. And then, these are the books by her, the first 3, if anyone's interested. I had them in order. I took great pains to count 21, 22, 23, but I don't remember how they went. And Denise Mina's Conviction is another read-alike. This one is about a housewife who enjoys reading very much, listening to true crime podcasts. And she's surprised when she listens to one and finds out that the story they're telling is her story. She's got some secrets in her past, so that was a real life for that.
What's the name of that last one? The relay?
Huh?
What was the name of your last relay?
Oh, I'm sorry, Conviction.
Alright, The Truth of the Alecki. In this sequel to his debut novel, we return to the Forever Desert 500 years later, where a boy must fight and investigate a hell-bent cult in order to save his people's way of life. Bosi becomes a hero of the city for volunteering, but can he follow through with his oath, and will he when he discovers the truth of the Alecki? This epic fantasy set in an African-like world sees heavy themes of questioning your patriotism and what government will do to demonize the others. My read-alikes are my favorite book, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is, in this award-winning epic fantasy, Patrick Rothfuss weaves a tale of Cloth, the folk hero from dark and devastating origins, and how he survives demons and dragons and becomes the king killer. This fantasy twists our ideas of what fantastical monsters are. And then also The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. When her divided city is sieged by demons, Benu and her crew of outcasts must find a way to seal an ancient evil in this Middle East-like fantasy setting.
So we have Victim by Andrew Borrega. Hopefully I said that right. Okay, and that is a dark humor novel to be released on March 12th. This funny and fast-paced novel is a satire on race, class, and privilege as we follow main character Javier Perez on his journey to becoming a famous writer. A hustler from a family of hustlers, Javi embellishes his life story all throughout college as he leaves his friends and tarnished past behind. Over the years, Javi stays in contact with his childhood best friend Gio, who once released from prison threatens the image Javi has created for himself. When Javi offers to cut him in on the deal, will he play along with Javi's charade, or will it all come crumbling down? Our first read-alike is going to be Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Okay, remember this. It is a literary fiction novel. So in this one, June Hayward is a literal nobody, but she becomes Juniper Song when she steals her deceased friend's unpublished manuscript. Soon though, June's success is threatened, and readers will witness just how far she is willing to go to keep what she thinks she deserves. Filled with white lies, dark humor, and deadly consequences, this intensifying paced novel will have you grappling with questions of diversity, race, and cultural appropriation. Next, we have The Sellout by Paul Beatty. It is also considered humor and literary fiction. A whirlwind satire about racial identity, a young man's isolated upbringing, and the race trial that sends him to the Supreme Court in Southern California. Filled with explicit language and hard topics, and told in Beatty's unique voice, The Sellout is the first American book to win England's prestigious Booker Prize. The common theme among all of these books is facing racism. I'm not sure about Yellowface, but I do believe in both Victim and The Sellout you are going to be dealing with a lot of graphic language. I know it was especially noted in The Sellout that they do use the N-word quite a bit. So if vulgar language is something you can't handle, then I would say The Sellout and Victim aren't for you, but you'd probably really enjoy Yellowface.
And what's the title of the one, the white book again?
The Sellout. It's really small, and it's by Paul Beatty.
Won the
B-E-A-T-T-Y.
Booker, or it was shortlisted for the Booker?
It won the Booker
Won
Prize.
the Booker.
Yep.
What year?
I don't know, that I'm not sure. I can't remember when it came out. But yes, if you don't like vulgar language, The Sellout is not for you, but you probably enjoy it.
Everyone is watching. This is by Heather Gudenkoff, of whom we have many books. The author, she writes thrillers, with many of her books here at the library. In this particular book, we're gonna have you at a Northern California estate, and there's a game show. 5 contestants are vying for $1 million. They may not leave the estate, nor may they have any contact with the outside world. No one knows what to expect, and the entire game is live streamed across the world. Sign me up. Really. And long kept dark secrets are going to be revealed in this process. It is described as Big Brother meets Clue. As Rita likes, I grabbed Just Get Home. It's about a couple of ladies who are relying on each other after an earthquake. And the component that I thought was similar there was the chaos. It's very chaotic. That's a very chaotic book. So how do we as human beings get through chaos? Which is a feature of Everyone is Watching as well. I also grabbed 9 Liars. That's from our young adult collection. And this is described as a pulse-pounding and laugh-outside funny book, or laugh-out-loud funny. 7 suspects, 2 murders, and 1 killer, and somebody's playing a deadly game. So that sounds like it could also be pretty intense. Oh, speaking of laughing, Anita DeMonte laughs last. And I had, let's see, I guess I have this one. My other 2 real lights I couldn't find in the library. Okay, that's another book by Miss Gonzalez. This is Xochitl Gonzalez is the author. And this takes place in New York City. A first-generation woman is accepted into Ivy League school because of her art talent. And while she's straddling the world between her immigrant family, although they call it an immigrant family, but I believe she's Puerto Rican, and Puerto Ricans are American citizens, so. But anyway, they're in New York. She's straddling 2 worlds, the one she was born into, and then she finds herself as she begins to date a very sophisticated, older art student that she's moving up in the world very nicely. And while she is pretty high on life and things are going very well for her, she finds a story of a murdered artist from a couple decades before she went to school, murdered art student who is completely forgotten, not taught about at all, and her death remains a mystery. So she has to figure out why her story is eerily like that dead artist's story. And it was described by Publishers Weekly as incandescent, which I thought was a lovely word to describe a book. I did think of Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. I think many of us have read that one. We've talked about it before. That too is a first-generation student who is in a PhD program, climbing up in the world while her mother is suicidal and her brother is addicted to drugs, and she tries to work through all those different issues. And Olga Dies Dreaming is New York City, but just after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. So New York City's Puerto Rican population has to react to this devastation on their island. And it's political corruption, family strife, and the American dream.
Okay, so next up we have Taya Obreras. I think I said that right. Her newest novel, she is known for The Tiger's Wife and Inland. This is her newest novel. It is literary fiction, magical realism, and a sprinkling of like mystery. It is to be released on March 19th. In this coming-of-age story of family and history, we follow Sylvia and her mother to the Morningside, a crumbling luxury tower in Island City. Here, Sylvia and her mother settle with their aunt Enna, who gives Sylvia glimpses into her family history and the folk tales of her demolished homeland. Enchanted by these stories, Sylvia begins seeing the world with magical possibilities and becomes obsessed with the mysterious older woman who lives in the penthouse of the Morningside. Where does she go at night with her 3 dogs, and why is she not back till morning? Startling, inventive, and profoundly moving, The Morningside is a novel about the stories we tell and the stories we refuse to tell to make sense of where we came from and who we hope we might become. The first book we have as a read-alike is the Book of Form and Emptiness, which I've heard she is wonderful. I know everyone here really likes Ruth Ozeki. It is also considered literary fiction and magical realism. After the death of his beloved father, 14-year-old Benny O begins to hear voices belonging to various things within the house. When his mother Annabelle develops a hoarding problem, Benny seeks refuge in his local library to escape all of the voices. At the library, Benny is able to find silence, make friends, and learn about himself from his very own talking book that teaches him to listen to the things that truly matter. Our next one is Sarah Addison Allen, Other Birds. It is currently checked out, so you have to go on the hold list if you want it. It is also magical realism fiction with a sprinkling of romance. In this enchanting tale filled with magical realism, we travel off the coast of South Carolina to the Delois, an old cobblestone building inhabited by birds and people alike, and an air of magical secrecy. When Zoe comes to claim her deceased mother's apartment, she meets her new, quirky yet secretive neighbors, eccentric. Each of them has a story, and each story has an ending that hasn't yet been written. The common themes among these books are magic, coming of age, grief or loss, and finding oneself.
This is The Swan's Nest. It is a historical romance. It's described as a tender, engrossing historical novel about an unlikely love affair between 2 great 19th century poets, Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barnett. With lyrical prose, McNeill delivers a remarkable fictionalized story of how Robert and Elizabeth fell in love and shocked the literary world. So, with both being set in the 19th century, they have strong senses of place and are centered around extraordinary women an extraordinary woman finding her place, which is why I grabbed these read-alikes, because they are also set in the 19th century. They have a strong sense of place and are about extraordinary women finding their place during that time period. The first is The Carnegie's Maid, and the other is The Personal Librarian, both by Marie Benedict. Both of them center around women who are finding their place. Clara Kelly is not who they think she is. She is not the experienced Irish maid, Clara Kelly, who was hired to work in the Carnegie household. She is Clara Kelly, and has decided to go ahead and take the opportunity to assume the identity of the woman who shares her name. It is described as a captivating insight into the 19th century. The Personal Librarian is the fictionalized story of Belle de Costa Green, who was the personal librarian for, and I love his name, James Pierpont Morgan, or J.P. Morgan, and how she becomes a fixture of New York society, despite the fact that she has a deep, dark secret that she doesn't want anyone to discover. So we have The Best Way to Bury Your Husband. This is a darkly comedic story about 4 women coming together to heal the damage their husbands have done and to hide their bodies. Friendship, laughter, and casual murder really do fix a lot of problems in this quirky, fast-paced thriller. The 2 read-alikes I have are also darkly funny stories. The first is My Sister the Serial Killer, which is about sisterhood and murder. I'm gonna say it is set in Nigeria. Koredes is the older sister, and she's having a delightful evening until it is interrupted by her younger sister, Ayula. This is the 3rd boyfriend that Ayula has broken up with, which requires bleach, rubber gloves, and nerves of steel. Noting a pattern, her older sister begins to think she might need to contact law enforcement until Ayula starts dating someone at her work, and that she has a crush on, and she doesn't want to see him hurt. Turning her sister in would involve, getting so excited about this book, all the words are trying to come out at once. She does not want to see this man hurt, but in order to save him, she would have to sacrifice her sister. This is a smart, sardonic story about what it means to be family. The next book is The Bandit Queens. Greet, no good husband disappeared about 5 years ago. She didn't kill him, but everyone thinks she did. And she's not arguing with that. Now, other women are starting to approach her for assistance with their husbands. Now her carefully constructed reputation has become a double-edged sword that she must deal with if she wants to grow her business and protect it.
I was happy that I got to snag the horror book this time. What Grows in the Dark by Jock Evans. It is horror to be released on March 5th. 16 years ago, Bridget Whalen's older sister Emma walked into the woods but never walked out. She was convinced a monster in the trees took her sister, but no one believed her. Fast forward to present day, and Bridget, now a phony spiritualist, returns to her hometown of Ellis Creek to assist in an investigation that is eerily similar to her own sister's disappearance. Maybe there is a monster in Ellis Creek, and it seems it's waited a long time for Bridget to come back home. Our first read-alike, which I think this has popped up quite a few times, is Jackal by Erin Adams. It is a horror mystery thriller. In this chilling debut novel, a young black girl goes missing in the woods outside her white Rust Belt town. She's not the first to disappear, and she won't be the last. When Liz Rocher? We're gonna go with that. When Liz Rocher comes home for her friend Caroline's wedding, things quickly start to go wrong. Caroline goes missing with only bloody fabric left behind. As police investigate, Liz notices a pattern. Children have been going missing in these woods for years, all of them black, all of them girls. Will she find Caroline or be consumed by the darkness in the woods? Next we have The Night House by Jo Nesbo. It is also a horror novel. From the internationally best-selling author, a twisted, multi-layered spin on the classic horror novel that follows 14-year-old Richard Elaved, recently orphaned, who is sent to live with his aunt and uncle. Labeled as an outcast, Richard is blamed when his classmate, Tom, goes missing. No one believes him when he says the phone booth at the edge of the woods sucked Tom in. When another classmate goes missing, Richard must prove his innocence as he grapples with the dark magic that is possessing the remote town of Ballantyne. The common themes among all of these novels is small town horror, lost in the woods, and creature feature, ? Maybe? I guess you'll have to read to find out. And then one thing I did notice as I was reading the description for this is if this description sounds good to you, you might actually really like the new Agatha Christie movie that she has, because it also involves a phony spiritualist. So, and I want to say that one's called The Haunting of Venice is her new movie. So you might like that if you thought this sounded interesting.
This next one is Women of Good Fortune by Sophie Wang. Lulu finds herself pushed into a marriage with Shanghai's most eligible bachelor. Financially it makes sense, but her heart says no. The only people she can trust in this high society world are her best friends, Rena and Jane. All three of them are fed up with the way society treats women, so the trio forge a plan to steal all of the gifts of money on the big day in this goofy, heartwarming but thought-provoking story. Several of the reviews described it as Ocean's 11 meets Crazy Rich Asians. So naturally, my first read-alike is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. This is also set against high society, but the high society of Singapore, when Rachel Chu agrees to spend the summer in Singapore with her boyfriend and his family. She expects a humble family home and long drives with the man she might one day marry. What she does not expect is to find herself at the center of Singapore's opulent high society with one of Asia's most eligible bachelors on her arm. This is an outrageously funny, fabulous novel about what it means to be young, in love, and gloriously wealthy. Next, I have The Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. This is a similar heist-themed story, but instead it questions raises questions about thievery and morality. It is lush, lyrical heist it actually inspired by the true story of Chinese art vanishing from Western museums. And it looks at what cultural heists mean, and the examination of Chinese American identity and the effects of colonialism.
Rose gives us Cheater. We have a lot of her books too. I'm going to tell you about Cold-Blooded Liar first. That's one of her other books in the series. The series is the San Diego Case Files. You'll know why in a minute. Cold-Blooded Liar that I chose as a reason is a cold case where Kit McKittrick meets Dr. Sam Reeves, his client confidentiality is conflicting with her need to solve a case, and they're both determined to solve the case. So that's a very realistic scenario that happens in criminal cases that involve mental illness. Now, Cheater is a story about a murder in an affluent retirement committee, and when Kit tries to investigate, she uncovers many skeletons in closets, and most of the people in the community want to keep those doors closed. They don't want to let her in on any of it. A longtime volunteer at the facility who regularly plays piano for the residents, his name is Dr. Sam Reeves. So his rapport with the residents proves vital to the case. Together again. So my guess is that will continue throughout the series. And then the other read I chose was the Bingo Hall Detectives. And that one is a story, a lady who plays bingo with her friends. One of their friends is murdered, and they don't think the police are taking it seriously enough. So they're going to solve the murder. So they put their resources together and figure out what happened to their friend.
All right. Parasol Against the Axe is described also as indescribable. This is an adventurous kaleidoscope of a novel set in Prague. Hero accepts an unexpected invitation to a restrained friend Sophie's bachelorette weekend. As most of us do when we travel, she brings a book with her. But this is no ordinary book. It starts warping reality, forcing the friends to confront themselves and each other, and each recount their own perspectives on the past. It has a strong sense of place. It is an utterly unique novel about with strong themes of friendship, forgiveness, and interpretation. So, and with an indescribable novel, finding read-alikes was fun. The first one I grabbed was No Two Persons, because it is also about perspective taking and how a confluence of events can create connections in unique ways, or especially centered around a particular novel that 9 people read, and how each of them have something different that they take away from it. Next is Colorless Tsukuru, Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haraki. Is a similar story also about friendship and confronting the past. Tazaki is one of the only ones from his friend group who does not have a color in his name, and one day his friends announce that they don't ever want to see him or talk to him again. Since that day, he has been floating through his life until he meets Sarah, who convinces him to discover what happened all of those years ago. Yeah, I do too. So, Catastrophe Ethics by Travis Reeder. This is a lucidly written, easy-to-follow guide exploring how to live a moral life in the midst of today's constant and complex choices, providing both an accessible tour of other moral thinkers such as Plato, Mill, and Kant. This provides a more actionable moral framework for complex modern issues. It is described as a thought-provoking read and a useful guide for developing new moral principles for the modern world. The first read-like I have is The Little Book of Big Ethical Questions. This is a look at ethical philosophy, which can be complex and a bit weird and kind of boring, and making it a lot easier to understand through an easy Q&A format. The other read-alike I have is The Quest for a Moral Compass. This is a look at the history of ethics and moral thinking, how it has developed through time and across the world in different places, and how different philosophical traditions have handled the concept of values and higher powers and moral guidance.
Okay, Tough Broad. I took this one simply because I love the title, and I thought it would be really fun. So it is Tough Broad. The full title is From Boogie Boarding to Wing Walking, How Outdoor Adventure Improves Our Lives as We Age by Caroline Paul. It is considered psychology/self-help, and it is to be released on March 5th. It is a funny, inspiring, and deeply researched exploration into the science and psychology of the outdoors and our place in it as we age. Caroline Paul has always lived a life of adventure, which led her to ask the question, why aren't women, like men, encouraged to keep adventuring into old age? Not only does she do a deep dive into the current research on aging, but she highlights the adventures of women from 52 years old and up to 93, I think was the oldest she had in here, whose experiences offer important insight into our own physical and emotional health as we age. Tough Broad is a high-spirited call for women to embrace the outdoors at all ages. So we have two read-alikes. We have The Ride of Her Life by Elizabeth Letts, which is about Annie Wilkins. I know I think that we've done that I think we did that for a book club somewhat recently. It's been very, very popular, and clearly it's a good pick because adventure at the age of 63. So in 1954, Annie Wilkins, a 63-year-old farmer from Maine, embarked on a 4,000-mile-long journey through America on horseback after being told she only had 2 years left to live, as long as she did it restfully. Not restful. Between 1954 and 1956, Annie, her horse Tarzan, and her dog Depeche Toy made many friends, offered jobs, and permanent places to stay, and she even turned down a marriage proposal, all in the name of adventure. Yes, that's a tough broad. That's a tough broad. And then No Stopping Us Now, The Adventures of Older Women in American History by Gail Collins. This is more of like the aging aspect rather than the adventure, but it still mentions it. A lively, fascinating, and eye-opening look at women and aging in America. Women have always had a complicated relationship with aging. Embrace it, deny it, or defer it. In this social history of American women and aging, we see how the arbitrary concept of age changes constantly over the centuries. No matter the age, Gail Collins gives women reason to expect the best in their golden years. Common themes in these books are adventure, aging, and humor. And then one other you might like is called Two Old Broads by M.E. Hecht and Whoopi Goldberg. If you want something funny, that's a good one for you.
Reminds me of Wild Girls too, Carol.
That was one of the other. I had to really whittle it down to read-alikes.
So has anyone here heard of an MLM, or multi-level marketing scheme?
I know what that is.
One person. So Selling the Dream is written by a Peabody and Emmy award-winning journalist, Jane Marie, and she exposes the scourge of multi-level marketing schemes and how they profit off of the American working class. This features in-depth research that shows how these companies use nefarious means to prey on desperate Americans just trying to make ends meet. And the MLM is basically a pyramid scheme that hasn't been caught yet. So a multi-level marketing, it's a pyramid scheme. So the first read-alike I have is Cultish. This looks into the language that cults use to attract members and dedicates a large portion of this book to multi-level marketing and how they use cultish language to get people interested in the door. The next read-alike I have is Going Infinite. This is about Sam Bankman-Fried, who was in the news recently. He was just sentenced. He was at one point the youngest billionaire on the planet, virtually overnight, thanks to cryptocurrency, but just as quickly it became known that he was a fraud, and he was indicted for 8 criminal offenses, including various forms of fraud, money laundering, campaign finance law violations, and many, many others. And this is about his story and kind of building a psychological profile of him.
Alright, Plentiful Country by Tyler Ann Bender tells of the great famine that desolated Ireland in the 1840s, killing over 1 million and pushing another 1 million out of their country into ours. It tells of how it reshaped America from then until now, delving into the discriminations that the Irish migrants faced in their new home, from poverty brought on by only being allowed to work the lowest end jobs to ridicule for their circumstances and appearances. And then we've got a pretty good selection of the Irish immigration back in the mid 1800s and how it's affected us. The famine ships is a delve into the voyages themselves and the people on the ships coming over to America. And it kind of goes into like who these people were and who came from those people. So like John F. Kennedy's great-grandfather was on one of those ships. So, and then 1001 things everyone should know about Irish American history. O'Donnell compiles a historic anthology of Irish Americans and all their achievements that shaped America to what it became today, from Medal of Honor recipients to presidents.
And then Not Your China Doll is a new biography on Anna May Wong, the first Asian American movie star, from her humble beginnings with her family's small laundry business to her big break in The Thief of Baghdad blockbuster. She was one of the first people to challenge Hollywood and to speak out about the movie industry's blatant racism. This is described as a well-researched biography, lucidly written, that showcases the vibrant, radical life of a groundbreaking artist. The read-alikes I grabbed, the first
same picture.
Yes, they do. It kind of weirds me out a little bit. The Daughter of the Dragon is also a biography of Anna May Wong. It actually just came out last year. And then The Brightest Star. This is actually a fiction title, so it is a fictionalized version of her story, so it puts you into her mind and the things that she had to go through to achieve her dream of stardom.
And lastly, we've got Says Who by Anne Curzan, linguist and English professor. Anne Curzan delves into proper grammar and explains the evolution of English, explaining the formal language is made up and those not real words are actually perfectly fine, and how new words form and how language evolves. Professor Curzan battles misconceptions and the grammar police in this guide that loosens up the constraints we've had imposed on our speech and tears down the tyranny of our old English teachers, and informs us on how those rules came to be. I brought Much Ado About a Lot. The Grammar Lady details proper etiquette in writing and speech and provides tools to enhance your English. And Have You Eaten Grandma? This handy grammar book details and provides a plethora of examples on why punctuation is so important in personal and professional writing.
That's like the book, Eat, Shoots, and Leaves.
I almost grabbed that one.
Yeah.
It was that or this one. Yeah, I like that one.
And that wraps up Books in Focus. Thank you everybody for joining
Thank
with
you.
us. Just some quick announcements. We do have our all-class registration starting on February 19th. So yeah, we are super excited for that. Those books are at the main desk. And then our next Books in Focus will be on March 12th. And now we'll be talking about the titles coming out in April. So thank you so much. Feel free to grab some extra cookies.
Thank you.